Germany is home to the world's deepest active borehole. What incredible discoveries have scientists made down there several kilometers below the surface?
And what does that have to do with the Kola drilling in Russia? Today we're going to take a close look at that, so let's get started right away.
I can already picture your comments. Astro Tim, you're talking nonsense. The Kola borehole is the deepest borehole in the world. That's true. Drilling took place on the Kola Peninsula in Russia from 1970 to 1992, reaching a depth of a whopping 12,262 meters. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the facility was abandoned and has been falling into disrepair ever since.
Reports on YouTube that supposedly show the original recordings of the screams of lost souls from Kola Lock are, by the way, nonsense.
The point is, in any case, that the Kola borehole hasn't been actively used for a long time, and that means the deepest borehole in the world that's still in active use is in Germany, specifically in Windischeschenbach, a small tranquil town in Bavaria. In southern Germany, surrounded by rolling hills, meadows, and fields, not exactly the first place one associates with one of the most spectacular scientific projects in German history, and yet an 83-meter-high steel drilling tower rises into the sky here, visible from afar and silently telling the story of what happened here between 1987 and 1995. Namely, the Federal Republic of Germany's Continental Deep Drilling Program, or KTB for short. The first major basic research project of its kind in Germany, funded with a staggering 300 million euros, the Federal Republic literally poured hundreds of millions into a hole.
And from a scientific perspective, it was more than worth it. By the way, just like subscribing to this channel, feel free to follow me now so you'll always be notified about new scientific discoveries. So let's take it step by step. Why drill so deep in the first place? It's simple. The Earth's crust beneath our feet is still, for the most part, a huge terra incognita.
Satellites can tell us everything about distant galaxies, but the interior of our planet was and remains in many respects a closed book. Seismic measurements from the surface do provide clues, but direct rock samples from the depths, actual temperature readings, pressure values, and chemical analyses deep within the rock, that's only possible with a borehole. Scientific drilling is, in a sense, our telescope into the Earth. The site was also chosen for a clever reason. In the Upper Palatinate, the critical temperature of 300 degrees is not expected until about 12 kilometers deep, that's 5 kilometers deeper than, for example, in the Black Forest, which was in the running as an alternative site, and that's crucial because the sensitive measurement electronics only function up to this temperature limit. The deeper one can drill at the same temperature, the more one learns. Additionally, Windischeschenbach was particularly interesting geologically. It lies in a tectonic boundary zone between ancient continental plates. Here, the traces of several collisions between continental blocks from around 300 to 400 million years ago are frozen in the rock, a geological archive in a class of its own. Between 1987 and 1989, a preliminary borehole was first sunk to a depth of 4 kilometers, as they say, entirely as a core borehole, meaning rock samples were collected all the way down. Starting in September 1990, 200 meters away, the main borehole began. And that was a feat of engineering. The drill string, consisting of 40-meter-long sections, was assembled semi-automatically. To minimize wear, only the front part of the drill head rotated, driven by a flushing fluid under extreme pressure. The drill head had to be changed about 500 times, and to ensure that the borehole remained as vertical as possible, a specially developed vertical drill head with automatic control was used. Up to a depth of 7,500 meters, the lateral deviation was a maximum of 12 meters, or just 0.0016%. A fantastic result. On October 12, 1994, the work was finally completed. After 1,468 days of drilling, a rock temperature of 275 degrees, and a pressure of nearly 1,000 bars, as the main borehole had reached its final depth of exactly 9,101 meters. By comparison, Mount Everest is 8,849 meters high, so in a sense, a reverse Everest was drilled into the Earth.
And now comes the exciting part, because the results have really surprised the geoscientists in several respects.
One of the most important discoveries, the rock exhibits fissures even at great depths, and deep water is significantly more mobile down there than previously thought. It had been expected that the rock at these depths would be virtually impenetrable. Not so, just imagine that. Deep underground, water circulating under enormous pressure through hair-thin cracks in the rock. Ulrich Harms from the Helmholtz Center Potsdam explains, without samples taken directly from the depths and underground measurements, key questions in the geosciences cannot be answered. The origins of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, the progression of climate and environmental changes over many millennia, and the formation and extraction of georesources.
And this unexpectedly mobile deep water situation, by the way, has direct consequences for something very practical: the planning of deep repositories for radioactive waste. If water circulates deeper in the rock than previously thought, then this must be taken into account when selecting a site.
The KTB has thus provided not only academic, but also socially relevant insights. Another major surprise was the magnetic field. Even during the preliminary drilling, the measuring instruments registered an unusually strong increase in the magnetic field that no one had anticipated. This increase turned out to be the result of a deep-seated, previously completely unknown, strongly magnetized zone, which was actually drilled into directly during the main borehole. The temperature gradient was also higher than calculated, and this ultimately meant that the originally targeted depth of 12 kilometers was never reached. They reached 9,101 meters, or about 75% of the original target. And then there are the technological innovations. The drilling and monitoring technologies developed for the KTB program are now considered the standard for research and exploration drilling worldwide. Directional drilling techniques, the automation of the drill string, new seismic measurement techniques, all of this was born here in the Bavarian countryside or significantly further developed. The founding of the German Research Center for Geosciences, GFZ, in 1992, and the International Continental Drilling Program, ICDP, in 1996 are also direct consequences of the KTB program. Today, both boreholes are filled with formation fluid and water. Unfortunately, a probe was lost inside and lies deep within the borehole.
Therefore, geophysical experiments are only possible down to a depth of 6.7 kilometers. Still, that's a remarkable depth.
And the laboratory is still actively used. Researchers test their measuring instruments here under real-world extreme conditions before deploying them on expeditions worldwide. The borehole thus serves not only as a monument to past research, but as a living test laboratory for future discoveries. Professor Susanne Bother of the German Research Center for Geosciences summed it up at the 30th anniversary celebration: the KTB has left behind achievements that reach far into the future and continue to shape geoscientific research to this day. By the way, the Geocenter on the site operates a public educational facility, and the 83-meter-high drill tower is still open to visitors, so if you're ever in Bay 34N, it's definitely worth a visit.
And by the way, numerous scientific deep drilling projects are currently underway worldwide, coordinated among others by the International Continental Scientific Drilling Program. In Iceland, for example, researchers are drilling several kilometers deep as part of the Iceland Deep Drilling Project to tap into extremely hot rocks and even magma directly, with the goal of developing new energy sources. In Italy, the Campi Flegrei Deep Drilling Project is planned to better understand supervolcano processes, while projects in Finland, Greece, and the Czech Republic specifically investigate earthquake gases from the Earth's interior or the structure of the Earth's crust. These drillings are, in a sense, a global network of windows into the Earth, and together provide an increasingly detailed picture of what is really happening beneath our feet. I'll keep you updated on all further geological discoveries. So please feel free to subscribe to the channel now and give it a thumbs up. Thank you very much, everyone. And speaking of discoveries that turn everything upside down,
the next video is all about an absolutely spectacular discovery by NASA on an exoplanet. A molecule was detected there that on Earth is produced exclusively by living organisms. You heard right, a biosignature molecule on a distant planet, and that raises the question: have we just discovered extraterrestrial life? Be sure to click on the video displayed in the top right corner. It's very exciting. As always, there's another video about science and space in the bottom right corner. And other than that, I'd say see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.